Hello, I'm Mike and this is Will. We are the Tabletop Donkeys.
Hello.
And we're bringing you issue 22 of Warhammer 40,000 Combat Patrol magazine today. This issue came with two new paints, Avalan Sunset and Catachan Flesh. So we can add those to your models and then we'll be playing our first proper game of Combat Patrol. So looking up through the issue, first up we have our painting guide for adding our new colours. So the Catachan Flesh, being a dark brown, is used for all of the leather parts, any pouches and belts on the Marines, and also things like the Librarian's book and the loop of leather on the end of the Chaplain's Crozius. And then the Avalan Sunset is used for some other details like the piping on the chest of the Librarian and some details on the teleport Homer. And for the Tyranids, we're just adding some Avalan Sunset to pick out pustulely blobby parts of the barb gaunts and the termagants, and also the eyes. We're also adding some Catachan Flesh to the Farseer, just for the leather pouch on his belt. And then you've got a gallery here showing progress up to this point, so you can check and see if there's any details you've missed. And then we have some background on the Eldari. Their technology is highly advanced and their warriors are exceptionally well trained, although they are a dying species, so they need to try and limit their casualties. And actually a lot of their soldiers are drawn from the Guardian Militia, civilians of their race, and these Guardians will back up troops from the warrior temples, who are more highly specialized troops. So you can see the Eldar usually go into battle wearing the colours of their craft world. There's a little bit about the Eldar vehicles, which tend towards speed and manoeuvrability rather than heavy armour. And then a bit on the craft world. So these are essentially giant spaceships, large enough to be effectively worlds that the Eldar live on. And Eldari are drawn towards certain paths and they will become highly specialised in what they do, even if that's things like poetry or farming. And then in times of war, everyone has to take up arms to defend the craft world. And each craft world has its own iconography and specific runes. Here you can see some of the more prominent ones. We have Samehan, who tend towards use of fast vehicles. Ulthway, who have a large number of seers. Yandon, who is actually one of the more populous craft warriors, but were devastated by the Tyranids, and have a force of ghost warriors now. We'll learn about them soon enough. And Alatok, who value strict adherence to their chosen discipline, but ironically this leads many of them to take the path of the outcast. And then a bit about the Imperium and the galaxy as a whole. So the Imperium spans most of the known galaxy, but is constantly at war. It's actually divided up into segmentums, divided further into smaller sectors. But a vast rift between the warp and real space called the Cicatrix Maledictum has actually split the Imperium in two. So the Imperium Sanctus, which is the side containing Terra and is still able to use the Astronomicon for navigation, and the Imperium Nihilus, which is blocked off from the Astronomicon by the Cicatrix Maledictum. And on the next two pages, we can actually see a map of the galaxies. You can see the Imperium Sanctus and the Imperium Nihilus, and then lots of various famous planets. We've got a little bit on some of the more famous war zones. The war zone Bastior, where the Imperium is fighting the Tyranids. The Nakmund Gauntlet, which is one of the few passages from the Imperium Sanctus to the Imperium Nihilus. The Pariah Nexus, which has large structures made out of blackstone and contains many Necrons. And the Charnath Expanse, where the Imperium are fighting against the forces of the Tau, as well as other forces, as well as the Orcs and Genestealer cults. And now we have some name generators for our Eldari characters. So we have one for the Farseer, so you can roll or choose a name you like for him. And then one for the upcoming Wraith Lord. But now I'll hand you over to Will, because we've got quite a few new rules to go over, and you can take us into today's game.
So in this issue, we learn how to play full-size combat patrol games rather than the selection of tutorial missions that we've had up to this point. So this page is just a general introduction to combat patrol. It explains that it's a quick and simple way to play Warhammer 40,000 and also to get into the game if you're new to it, because you can take a small force from one faction and get it painted and ready for battle relatively quickly, and then the games are relatively short and fast-paced compared to some of the larger Warhammer 40,000 games that you can play. Before we get into the Combat Patrol rules proper, there's also a section about painting, because in Combat Patrol you do technically get points in the game for having your models painted to a certain standard, and the standard that they define is usually called Battle Ready, which is where your model is painted with several colours and then has a base that is done to match. So there are some examples here of models painted to a Battle Ready standard using both contrast and classic paints. And here we have a sample battlefield with the Tyranid and Space Marine combat patrols and some terrain. Sadly we don't get this terrain with the magazine, but this is a sort of thing you can expect to see if you're playing combat patrol. And then here we have how to play a combat patrol mission. So there's a number of steps to go through in order to choose your army and set up the game and get playing. So I'll just go through these in order. First of all, we select a combat patrol and an enhancement. We haven't learned about enhancements yet, and the way they're introducing things, we're assuming they will do a tutorial on those at some point, so we're not going to be using them in this game, but you pick them when you pick your combat patrol, and it also mentions that one model in that is called your warlord. They are usually the unit that gets the enhancement, and also sometimes in the mission there may be special rules related to them. Then you determine the mission. You can either choose one with your opponent, or you can roll on this table here. There are 6 basic combat patrol missions. Judging by what they've written here, we're going to be getting all of them in this magazine, and they're probably going to be given in different issues, so we get the first one in this issue, and each mission will explain exactly how it works. There's also some icons down here for the battlefield key. These relate to the map that you'll get with each combat patrol mission and explain what everything means on the picture, as we'll see in that in a second. Next, you then create the battlefield. All combat patrol games are played on a 44 by 30 inch rectangular board, which is 2 of the battle mats that we've got placed together. So we do now actually have a large enough battlefield to use. Then you place terrain on them, and it says to place terrain however you like, but to create an exciting and interesting battlefield that is hopefully relatively balanced, so both sides get the benefit of some cover. You then determine attacker and defender by rolling off, and the winner decides who will be attacker and defender, which will have impacts on who chooses which deployment zone. Declare battle formations is a step where you declare what leader units will be leading what models and what things will be going in reserve, and if you have any transports, then units will go in transports. And then you deploy armies. Starting with the defender, you alternate setting up units one at a time, as we've already been doing. Then you determine the first turn by rolling off, and the winner takes the first turn, resolve some pre-battle rules, and then start the battle. And then you end the battle after 5 battle rounds. If one player has no models left, the other player can continue playing out their remaining turns to score as many points as possible, because they might technically be behind in points. And finally, you determine the victor by adding up victory points according to the rules in the mission. And there's also a bit about objective markers here, and there's a special rule for combat patrol games where battle line units, which have the appropriate keyword, if they control an objective at the end of the command phase, then that objective remains under the control of that player even if all their units move away from it. So combat patrols that have a battle line unit obviously have a big advantage in that respect. So that might seem like a lot of information, but we'll go through the steps as we set up our game so you'll get to see them in action, and then this will be the mission we're playing. The first mission, Clash of Patrols, which is the recommended one if you've never played Combat Patrol before, so we'll be playing that for this game. I'll show you the battlefield map first. So using the symbols on the previous page, you can see the attacker's deployment zone is at the top and the defender's deployment zone is at the bottom, and it's 10 inches away from the horizontal centre line of the board along the long edges of the battlefield. And there are 4 objectives, 10 inches away horizontally and 6 inches away vertically around the centre of the board, so they form a sort of diamond shape in the middle, and then the hashed area in the middle is no man's land, where units can't normally deploy unless they have infiltrate or similar. There is a mission rule called Retrieve Intelligence, where in each player's command phase, from the second battle round onwards, the player whose turn it is can select an objective marker they control and recover data from it, and if their warlord is on the battlefield, they gain a CP when they do so, but each objective marker can only be selected once for this rule by either player. The primary objective is called Take and Hold, so in the second, third and fourth battle rounds at the end of the player's command phase, the player whose turn it is scores 5 victory points for each objective they control to a maximum of 15, so there's no benefit to holding all 4. In the fifth battle round it's slightly different. The player has the first turn, scores as described above, but the player has the second turn, scores at the end of their turn instead of the end of their command phase, so going second and having the very final turn of the game can be advantageous for scoring some last ditch points, because you get your whole turn to move on with the objectives rather than having to score at the start of your turn. It's a primary objective. There are usually secondary objectives, but those are specific to each combat patrol, and again, because those haven't been described by the magazine, we won't be using them yet, because I assume we'll get a proper tutorial about them in the future. And on the back of that page there's a table where you can record all the matchups you've had using this mission, with the different factions that come with the combat patrol, and who won in each case, whether they were the attacker or defender at the time. But that's actually all there is in this issue. There's no actual playthrough example or anything like we've been used to, so whether they actually intend you to play a game or not is not entirely clear, but obviously we're going to do that for the sake of this video, so we'll be playing this mission using the Space Marine and Tyranid combat patrols, since we have them in full, and we'll get straight into it. So here's our battlefield. We've, I guess, done steps 1 to 3 now, technically, having selected our combat patrols and the mission and set up the battlefield. As you can see the 4 objectives in the centre and arranged in their sort of diamond formation, and then we've put out the terrain cards in a reasonable arrangement. So on the side closer to the camera we've got 2 barricades, one right in the centre almost, and then one to the right, and then some of the impassable terrain, and then we've got it sort of mirrored on the other side. The next step is to roll off and determine who is attacker and defender. So I've rolled a 6. Oh, I have to roll again. Right, there we go.
I guess I'll be the attacker.
And here you can see the results of our deployment. So obviously we've gone through the declare battle formation step, but we'll talk about our decisions for that as we go through the armies. So having a look at the Space Marine deployment, I decided not to attach either of my 2 characters to the Terminators because it just means I have 1 fewer unit to actually hold objectives, and if I put the Librarian with the Terminators, which seems like a slightly better choice, the Psychophage will just be able to eat the Terminators better. So we've got the 2 characters in the middle, and then the Infernus Marines on the left and the Terminators on the right, and also as part of declare battle formations I would have had to declare if anything was going to start in reserves to arrive by Deep Strike, but I didn't want to do that because if the Tyranids get board position they can force my units back and Deep Strike won't help all that much. And then you can see the Tyranid deployment on the other side.
Yeah, so the Tyranid Prime I'm not going to put in Deep Strike, and he can't join any units anyway, and I've decided to use the Termagant's Patrol Squad's ability to split them into 2 units of 10 rather than 1 of 20. Gives me more board coverage as well with 2 units of 10. Lets me capture more objectives with battle line units at once as well.
Yes, Patrol Squads is actually an ability shared by a number of units in Combat Patrol, and you have to declare you're using it at the declare battle formation step. And yes, the Termagants are also battle line units, so the Tyranids do have the advantage of being able to hold objectives permanently.
Yeah. So on my right, I have the Barb Gaunts next to a unit of Termagants, the Tyranid Prime next to the other unit of Termagants, with the Psychophage on my left flank, and I've got the Von Ryan's Leapers hidden behind that terrain piece near Objective 3.
So the last step before we begin the game is to roll off to see who gets the first turn. Well, I've won the roll off, which means I must go first, as per the rules. So we'll be on to Space Marines turn 1. The only thing that happens in the command phase is we gain a command point each, and then I've just moved up more my units normally. The Infernus Marines are going to stay behind the infinitely tall, impassable terrain so that they can't be seen by the Barb Gaunts, while everything else has just moved up so they can shoot. The Librarian's going to hang back on Objective 4 slightly, the Captain swapping places with him effectively to go over near the Infernus Marines, and the Terminators marching up. Don't score any objectives in the first command phase, it's from the second battle round onwards, so taking objectives early is good, but if I sent the Infernus Marines over to Objective 2, they'd probably just get annihilated. So we're going to play cautiously for now. Then we're going to do some shooting. We'll do the Terminators. They're going to shoot the Termagants across from them near Objective 1 next to the Tyranid Prime. Do the Assault Cannon first. 6 shots hitting all 3s. 4 hits. 2s to wound the Toughness 3 Termagants with devastating wounds on 6s. We get 1 devastating wound and 3 normal wounds with no AP.
3 5 pluses, failed them all. Boarded.
And 8 shots from Storm Bolters at this range, hitting all 3s. 6 hits, wounding on 3s. 5 wounds, no AP again.
5 5+ saves. Made 1. We've got 2 Termagants left.
Well, not too bad. We'll shoot the Captain Storm Bolter at those 2 remaining Termagants as well. 2 shots on 2s, yes, and 3s to wound. 1.
Saved.
Well, the Librarian's also going to shoot Storm Bolter at the Termagants, but he's going to use Smite on the Tyranid Prime and use the focused Witchfire version, so we're going to just try and plink a couple of wounds off. Storm Bolter, well, they both hit, and they wound on 3s. No, they don't wound. Didn't get sustained hits incidentally, yeah, because he's not leading a unit. He has to be leading a unit for that rule to trigger. And then d6 shots from Smite. 4, also on 3s. 2 hits. I think I'll re-roll 1 of those with my command point because I don't have much else to use them for. No, didn't hit anyway. And then 3s to wound. Oh, only 1 on the Tyranid Prime, but with AP -2 with the focused Witchfire.
So 6+. Oh, now roll 6.
And then he needs to make his hazardous tests. On a 1 he takes wounds. He's fine. But that'll be it for shooting, and obviously no charges, so 8 Termagants killed as we move into Tyranids turn 1. So we gain another command point each, and the Termagants have to take a battle shock test.
Yep, so they're leadership 8, so they're fine.
And that is important because the Termagants, being a battle line unit, do control Objective 1 from this distance, which means that in the Tyranid player's command phase, that comes under their control until it's taken away.
So, starting my movement with the left-hand side of the board, the Tyranid Primer's moved out. Going to try and get a charge on those Infernus Marines. Might be a bit of a long one though. The Termagants have moved up to hold Objective 2, and the Barb Gaunts have moved across so that they're all in range of the Terminators. On this side of the board, the Psychophage has moved to take Objective 3. The Von Ryan's Leapers are going to stay where they are. And because Objective 1 is stickied now, these 2 Termagants have moved across. If I can get them around to Objective 3, I can possibly sticky that one if they pass their battle shock test. The shooting phase with the Barb Gaunt, shooting at the Terminators, because they have 5 men in that unit, so I do get bonus shots at the very least. 5d6 plus 5. 26 shots, hitting on 4s, so I'll do two batches of 13. So that was 8 from the first batch, 14 hits in total, wounding on 4s. 9 wounds, but no AP though.
9 2+ saves, 2 wounds.
I'll do the Psychophage next, because it's got the shortest range of the other units I have to shoot at them. D6 attacks, 4, I'll take that. They automatically hit, so these wound on 3s. 4 wounds at AP -1.
3s to save. Oh dear, we failed 3. I think I'll re-roll one of those with a command point actually. Into success, so 2 wounds.
And finally, the full unit of Termagants. They did advance, but of course they have assault, so they can advance and shoot. 10 shots on 4s, 5 hits, wounding on 4s. 3 more wounds with no AP.
3 more 2+s. We made all of those at least.
And finally, in the charge phase, the Tyranid Prime is going to try and charge at the Infernus Marines. Made a semi-decent roll. A 7. 7 wasn't actually enough to get him within range of the Infernus Marines and stay an inch away from the captain, and I didn't declare the captain as a charge target, so I will have to spend a command point to reroll that charge. Oh, back into a 7, so that's not going to be enough, I think, unless we carefully remeasure again.
No, that still isn't quite enough. It is very, very close, but he cannot get within an inch of the Infernus Marine, the furthest to the right, without getting within an inch of the captain. But that will be the end of the Tyranid turn. On to Space Marines turn 2. So in my command phase, we both gain a command point. I gain 5 victory points because I hold objective 4, and I can also retrieve intelligence from objective 4, and because my warlord is on the battlefield, I gain an extra command point. You can see all of my movement in this shot. The Infernus Marines have come out of cover round towards objective 2, getting 3 of them to stand on it. The captain is moving as far as he can because that barricade's in the way. The librarian is following him, and then the Terminators can only move 3 inches because they're disrupted, so they only get that far. We'll get there eventually. Termagants decided not to use Skulking Horrors, move it away, so we'll be on to shooting, where I'll do the Infernus Marines and they're going to shoot the Termagants. We'll have 5d6 automatic hits. 20 automatic hits, wounding on 3s. And that was 15 wounds.
15, 5+ saves. We only made 3, they're all dead.
Terminator's now in range of the Barb Gaunts, so they're going to shoot at them. Start with the Assault Cannon, 6 shots on 3s. 4 hits, wounding on 3s with devastating wounds. 1 devastating wound and 2 normal wounds.
4+ saves for Barb Gaunts. Fail both, so that's 3 damage.
And 6 Stormbolter shots left, hitting on the 3s. 5 hits, wounding on 4s. 3.
4+ saves again. Made them all.
Captain's actually just about within 12 inches of the Barb Gaunts, so might as well shoot at them because we get the extra shots. 2s, 3 hits. And 4s, 2.
4+. Made 1, failed 1. Lose another Barb Gaunt.
The Librarian will use just normal Witchfire Smite on them, rather than focused, and he'll shoot Stormbolter at the Tyranid Prime, because it's within 12. So I'll do the Smite, 4 shots, hitting on 3s. Oh, only 1 hit, and it wounds on the 3. No, it failed to wound. And the Stormbolter at the Tyranid Prime. He only hits twice, and he needs 5s to wound. Yeah, nothing. All the shooting, so charges. We'll do the Captain first at the Tyranid Prime. Within 3 inches, but he will have to go over the barricade because he's too large, so this will actually need to be a 6. That's a 4, but he gets to reroll for free because of Unstoppable Valor. Into a 5, he fails. So the Captain stays where he is. The Librarian will declare a charge, though. It'll be a long charge because he'll also have to go over the barricade. A 9 might be enough, though. Yeah, that was enough. He was within 6, so with the -3 penalty for going over the barricade, the Librarian gets into melee and can fight the Tyranid Prime. He has 4 attacks that hit on 3s. 3 hits. I might as well reroll 1, I suppose. Into another success, and then wounding on 3s because he's strength 6. 3 wounds at AP -1.
5+ armour. Made 1, and you know what, I'll reroll 1 as well. Nope, 2 fails.
2d3 damage. 5.
Down to 1.
But he does get to fight back.
6 attacks on 2s. Getting 5 hits. Wounding on 3s. 4 wounds at AP -1.
4 3+ saves. Oh, made them all. So that is the end of Space Marines turn 2. On to Tyranids turn 2. So the Tyranids gain 10 victory points, holding objective 1 and 3, even if the battle shock tests are failed, and can also retrieve intelligence.
I'll do it on objective 1.
So gaining another command point.
Then we have to make battle shock tests for the Tyranid Prime and the Termagants. So I'll do the Tyranid Prime first. He's leadership 7. So he fails, he's got to stay in combat basically, and he can't use stratagems. While the Termagants also fail, so no AC for them. So in my movement phase, the Barb Gaunts are going to stay where they are, says the Tyranid Prime, because if he falls back, he will have to take a desperate escape test and might just die instantly. The Von Ryan's Leapers are coming across to try and help him out, while on the other side, the Psychophage is moved basically as close as it can to the Terminators and without going over the barrier, and the 2 Termagants are hiding behind that terrain piece, so if they become unbattle shocked next turn, they can sticky objective 3. And I'll do the Psychophage first in the shooting phase. D6 shots, 1. I think I will re-roll that with a command point. 3 shots. That hit, wounding on 3s, 2 wounds at AP -1.
3+ saves for Terminators, we made both.
And then I'll do the Barb Gaunts on the Infernus Marines. 3d6 +3. 7 shots. Not good. Hitting on 3s because we didn't move. 4, 3s to wound. 3, no AP.
3s to save. Oh, we take a wound.
And the charge phase, I'm going to do the Von Ryan's Leapers first because they're the important one, I think. Charging just the Librarian. 6 will be enough to get them in. They're all facing the wrong way, but it doesn't really matter, I can get them all in, and it kind of stops the captain. Captain's going to have to charge over this way, or he can't stand on that, so he has to go around. Moving over to the Psychophage, where it's going to try and charge the Terminators. It's going to need a very big charge, because it has to add 3 for moving over the terrain feature. And it gets a 3, so I'm going to re-roll that. Into a 7, that's probably not going to be enough, because that's reduced to a 4.
No, that was not enough, but then we move on to the Von Ryan's Leapers, which you get to fight first.
18 attacks on 3s, 14 hits, wounding on 4s. 9 at AP -1.
9, 3 plus saves for Librarian. Oh dear, he failed 6, so even if I re-roll 1, he's only got 5 wounds, so Librarian is dead. So that leaves a very dead Librarian, but that will be the end of the Tyranid turn. And we're on to Space Marine's turn 3. So I will gather intelligence on objective 2 this time, because I do hold it, and because I hold 2, I gain 10, going up to 15 victory points. And then we'll move up like this. The Infernus Marines are disrupted, so they can only move 4 inches, but they can still move so they can all see a Von Ryan's Leaper, Terminators coming into the middle, and the Captain just shuffling over because the barricade's kind of in his way. He's on objective 4 here though, so if he doesn't make any charges, he'll at least be holding that. But then we'll do some shooting. Well, we'll do the Infernus Marines all shooting at the Leapers. 5d6 automatic hits. There's 15 hits, wounding on 4s. 6 wounds at no AP.
6 4 plus saves. I made 4 of them, so we just have a wounded Leaper.
The Terminators will shoot now. We're going to put the Assault Cannon into the Tyranid Prime and the Storm Bolters into the Leapers. Do the Storm Bolters first on 3s. That was 5 hits, but they get an extra shot at this range, so there's actually half of them. They hit on 4s against Leapers as well because of stealth, so that would be 7 hits in total. And 5s to wound. Well, 4 of those at least.
4 pluses. Failed them all. I think I will re-roll 1, just so I don't lose 2 Leapers. Into a success. That was the 5.
And the Assault Cannon on the Tyranid Prime, this does hit on 3s. Getting 4. 3s to wound, because it's strength 6. 6s are devastating wounds. Well, just 2 normal wounds. No AP though.
4s. Oh, failed 1, and I've already used the command point, so he dies.
The Captain is going to shoot at the Barb Gaunts because I want the Terminators to charge the Leapers, and if I kill that one, they'll be further away from Objective 1 when they charge. Hopefully they might be able to consolidate onto Objective 1 if they kill all the Leapers. Only 2 shots because he did move. They both hit, and 1 wound on the Leapers.
And failed the save, so 1 is wounded.
Then we'll charge. I will do the Captain first because he needs a big roll to get into the space on the other side of the barricade. He rolled a 6. Now, unfortunately, his base is so large he needed to roll a 7, but he gets a free reroll into a 7. That's just enough to get the Captain there, and then the Terminators will charge as well. They roll a 10, so they're definitely in. And with that roll, we can wrap all the way around the Leapers like this, keeping the Assault Cannon Man, who's the most important, close to Objective 1, so if they kill them all, we can consolidate onto it. But the Leapers get to fight first because they have fights first, as well as the charging units, and it's not their turn.
Yeah, so I will attack the Terminators. It's on 3s. No, 4 hits, wounding on 4s. 2 wounds at AP -1.
3s. Well, we failed both, so the Sergeant would actually die. I guess I'll re-roll that because I've got a million command points. No, it still failed, so the Sergeant's dead. But then I'll do the Captain, because the Terminators hopefully can finish them off and get that consolidate. Or actually, even if the Captain does kill them, they can still pile in and consolidate, because they did charge. 6 attacks from the Captain on 2s. Well, it's not a great roll, but 5 of them do hit. And 4s to wound, he gets 4. They probably will actually kill them.
And these are on 6s as well. Yeah, they're all dead.
He does kill them. And the Captain will not consolidate, but the Terminators can consolidate because doing so would get them onto an objective, so they will do that. But that's the board at the end of Space Marine's turn 3, on to Tyranid's turn 3. So we gain more command points. The Tyranids unfortunately can't retrieve intelligence anymore because your warlord has to be alive for that to work.
But I do still gain 5 victory points, and I have to make a battle shock test for those 2 remaining termagants who failed. Leash of 8. On movement, the termagants are going to stay hidden where they are, and the Psychophage can only move 5 because it has to move over the barricades. It can finally get around. If it makes a good charge at the Captain, I might be able to take objective 4. And the Barb Gaunts are going to move up because I'm going to have to try and deny the Marines objective 2, I think. So they're going to have to do something a bit daring. But in the shooting phase, I'll start with the Barb Gaunts, going to shoot at the Infernus Marines. 3d6 plus 3 again. You know what? I'll command point reroll that 1. Oh, I got one more shot. That's 10. 10 shots hitting on 4s, getting 4 and 3s. 2.
2 3+ saves. Oh, we failed one, so we do lose that wounded marine. You know what, I might actually re-roll that to save him because that's another model on the objective. Oh no, still failed.
And then I've got the Psychophage, who's just in range of the Terminators, so D6 shots, 6, wounding on 3s, 2.
2 3+. We take a wound.
On to the charge phase where the Psychophage is going to charge the Captain. Need a semi-decent roll. A 10 will definitely be enough. And I'll roll for the Bargwants now, they're going to charge the Infernus Marines. With a 4, that will be enough, I think.
So the Psychophage with its big base can't get into base contact with the Captain, which means that it can actually sit like this, where the rear of its base is in range of Objective 4, and the Bargwants charging into the Infernus Marines. And both of those units get to go first.
I'll do the Psychophage first. D6 plus 1 attacks for 6. Probably should have used his breath weapon on the Captain, because he would be below starting strength, so I get plus 1 to hit, but we learn from our mistakes. So we've got 6 attacks hitting on 3s. Oh, it wouldn't have made any difference. So 5 hits, wounding on 3s, 6s are devastating.
Ooh.
So that's 4 wounds at AP -1, and the devastating is just 2 damage.
4 3+ saves as well. We failed 1. I will re-roll that, I think, because I don't want to taking any more damage. Hitting a 3. Oh no, 4 damage on the Captain. He's down to 2.
And then the Bargwants, 3 attacks on 4s. 1 hit. Wounds on a 4. Wounds.
3+ save. No, we're fine. Do the Captain fighting the Psychophage. 6 attacks on 2s. They all hit. 5s to wound. All 3 at AP -1, 2.
5 plus armour. Failed them all. We've got 5 plus feel no pain. Ignored 3 of them.
Down to 7 wounds. And only 3 of the Infernus Marines can get in to fight, because one of them was blocked off by their friends, so we'll have 9 attacks back at the Bargwants hitting on 3s. 7 hits. 4s to wound, though. Alright, 5 of those.
Come on. 4 plus saves. Made 4. We lose a Bargwant.
Well, that will be that for Tyranid's turn 3. On to Space Marine's turn 4. So I gain another 10 victory points because I hold 2 objectives still. And I can't retrieve intelligence on objective 1 because the Tyranids already did that over there. And the way we're reading the scenario is that it's only available once per game for either player. And the Captain has to take a battle shock test, which he passes with an 8. Well, the Captain is being a fallback. He doesn't have to take a desperate escape test because he fails his battle shock, fortunately. He's going to go and stand on objective 1. And the Terminators are going to charge the Psychophage, probably just going to try and hold it up for the rest of the game so it can't do anything else. While the Infernus Marines will stay in melee with the Bargwants, because I hope we'll win that fight eventually. But then we'll have some shooting. Infernus Marines will be able to shoot their pistols, and the Terminators will shoot everything at the Psychophage. Pistols first, 4 shots on 3s. One of those was actually a 2, it got knocked over by a later dice, so I'm going to take 3 hits there. And 2 wounds on 4s.
4 plus armour. Fail both, lose a Bargwant.
And the Terminators will do all the Stormbolt shots first on 3s. Oh dear. Only 2 hits, wounding on 6s. Can't even get them in the box. No wounds. And the Assault Cannon on 3s. Well, that can hit. Wounding on 5s as well. 6s are devastating. Well, we've got 1 normal wound and 2 mortal wounds going through. So roll the armour save and then do the
3 plus armour, saved, and then feel no pains for the devastating wound. Block them both.
1 charge in the charge phase, which is the Terminators. So if they roll a really big number, they might be able to get behind it and at least contest objective 4. Yes, we probably need like a 12 to get behind it. Well, we'll get a 9, but no, that won't be enough, so we'll just be fighting it from the front. So the Terminators will be there, and then they can fight first. 3 attacks each with their Power Fists, hitting on 3s. 6 hits, wounding on 5s. 4, mighty -2.
5s to save. Saved 1, might as well re-roll 1. Oh, into a save. And then that will be 2 damage each, so 4 damage. Feel no pain. Oh, definitely felt pains, down to 3. And then it has D6 plus 1 attacks. 3 attacks, hitting on 2s, because the Terminators are below starting strength. And that helped. 3 hits. Wounding on 3, 6s is devastating. 3 wounds, 8 plus 1.
3 3+ saves. Oh, failed all 3 of them. Terminator armour is not protecting in this game, so we'll have to re-roll 1 at least. Well, that succeeded, so we only lose 1 Terminator. I've got 12 attacks from the Infernus Marines. 7 hits, winning on 4s. Only 3.
4 plus saves. No, it dies. Takes 2.
That'll be the end of Space Marines turn 4, on to Tyranid's turn 4.
I need to make some battle shock tests to actually hold any objectives. Well, they're both leadership 8, so we'll do the termagants. Yes, that's very important.
That is good, because that means they can hold that objective now and keep it for the rest of the game. Yep.
And then the Psychophage fails, so I only hold 1. The only movement is the 2 termagants are going to hide from the captain by moving a little bit along the terrain piece. And then it's just straight to the fight phase where the Terminators go first.
Down to 6 attacks with 2 Terminators on 3s, 4 hits, and 5s to wound. Only 1.
5+ armour? Nope. But yeah, it won't die, so I'll take Feel No Pain. Takes 1 damage. It's to attack back. With 6 attacks, I will take that. Hitting on 2s, because they're below half strength. Now they all hit. Wounding on 2s as well, because it's got +1 to wound because they are below half strength. 6s are devastating. I'll just re-roll that 1. Into a 2, so that is a wound. 6 wounds.
6 3+ saves. Oh, we made all of them this time. Actually, the Psychophage was battle shock, so we couldn't have re-rolled the wound roll there, but the Terminators made all their saves anyway, so it doesn't make any difference. And with that, we'll be on to Space Marines turn 5, which is the final battle round of the game. So remember, there's slightly different scoring. The Tyranids will score at the end of their turn, not the start. If the captain fails his battle shock test, I'll only hold 1 objective, but he passed with a 7, so I gain 10 more points. I'm up to 35. Terminators also have to take a test, and they pass as well. So the captain has moved around to follow the termagants, but they can Skulking Horrors and run away.
3.
So that makes the captain's charge very long indeed. And over here, the Infernus Marines have moved out away from Objective 2 just to kind of screen it off. There's an unlikely set of circumstances where the Psychophage kills the 2 Terminators in this turn, passes its Battle Shock test, and then in the next turn it's free to move on to either Objective 1 or take Objective 2 from the Infernus Marines by killing a couple, and then the Termagants can get onto Objective 4, then the Tyranids will actually hold 3 objectives and draw the game. But it has to kill the Terminators and they have to pass 2 Battle Shock tests, so unlikely, but could happen. But there won't be any shooting because I can't see anything with the units that can shoot, or they're out of range. So then we're on to the charge phase, where the captain has a long charge to make because he can't fit through the gap to the bottom of in there. An 8 won't be enough. Gets his reroll. No. So we're straight to the fight phase, where the Psychophage gets to try and eat the Terminators.
D6 plus 1 attacks. 4. Can't re-roll because you can't use stratagems. 4 attacks hitting on 2s. They all hit. Wounding on 2s, 6s are devastating. 1 is devastated and 3 saves.
So I need to make... Oh, I did make all 3 saves. So 2 mortal wounds, though, will kill the wounded one. And then we just got the Terminator to punch the Psychophage. Hit twice. They're not battle shots, so I might as well re-roll that because they're now safe for this phase. Yep. 5s to wound. 3 wounds.
He's mad. Blocked 1. Feel no pain.
Make 3 of these.
No, it dies.
No, it dies, but it might, it could technically do some damage. No, it didn't roll a 6 for Deadly Demise. And that's effectively the end of the game there, because the Termagants, even if they pass their Battle Shock test, could get to Objective 4 and hold 2 objectives. Roll their Battle Shock, but they failed anyway. So Tyranids hold 1 objective, because Objective 3 is still sticky. And so the final scores will be 45 for the Space Marines and 35 for the Tyranids, because we do both have armies painted to a battle-ready standard and get the 10 victory points for that. But obviously that is a Space Marine victory, and we'll recap that for you now. So that was the game for issue 22 of Warhammer 40,000 Combat Patrol, and the first proper Combat Patrol game we've played. How did you think it went?
Not that great from my perspective. I think I put the Psychophage on the wrong side of the battlefield. Would have been more useful in the middle. I should have swapped it with the Bargaunts, I think. Bargaunts would have been in a much safer position as well. And the Tyranid Prime failing his charge was probably quite a big point. He's pretty lucky to survive a turn, because the captain failed his charge roll twice. Things like the Bargaunts weren't really pulling their weight either. Although, to be fair, I was only down 10 points, so it's not actually a huge loss or anything.
I felt like I guess I had the initiative for most of the game because I was able to kind of avoid the Psychophage and send my units where I wanted them. But again, that charge going off would have changed that. And also the fact that I went first as well was quite a big deal, because if I hadn't, you could have moved up and shot with the Bargaunts and made one of my units slower. But you would have just been able to take the objectives at the start, and then you would have been in a position to hold 3 in your second turn and get the full 15, which would have put me really on the back foot because I would have been on 5.
And also you actually get to use the Terminators.
Yeah, the fact I got to shoot with the Terminators and the Infernus Marines in the same game probably helped quite a lot as well. This was the Space Marine Combat Patrol actually working. We've said in the past that as a Combat Patrol it struggles with certain things, and the way it needs to win games is to be aggressive and be constantly dealing damage, which it was, and even then it was still quite close in points.
I think the fact that you just didn't have sticky objectives meant that I think you only ever held 2 at the same time, so you weren't able to pull out a big lead. Yeah, and there are other rules like the extra stratagems and things, like I can bring the Termagants back, and technically the Space Marines can sticky an objective as well, but you have to spend command points to do it. We'll learn about that later on.
Yeah, of course it is technically a conscious choice of ours to not include certain things. Like, it did mention enhancements in the introduction thing, for example, but our policy has usually been we don't introduce anything that the magazine hasn't given us a tutorial for first. So we are assuming they will give us a tutorial on enhancements. In the next issue, for example, we do get the Space Marines faction rule introduced, which you could have easily figured out how to use by this point, and it is on one of the rules cards that we've got, but it will be formally introduced next issue, so we didn't use it up until this point. And you do obviously have to judge the overall strength of a combat patrol based on all of its rules, but given that we were both missing faction abilities and stratagems and things, probably not too much of a balance change. There are of course also secondary objectives that are unique to each combat patrol, and you actually pick one at the start of the game. Again, that's something we're not introducing because we haven't been told about it yet, but again, since it was essentially a level playing field in that respect, it probably didn't have too much of an impact. It is nice to play on the full-size board though, because, well, firstly the Tyranids get the benefit of their speed to be able to move a long way across the board. Now, obviously that was a great benefit on a smaller board as well, and also give the Space Marines get a little bit more room to breathe, not just be pounced on immediately. Can actually move up in turn 1 and shoot without immediately worrying about being attacked. And of course we got the full rules for the combat patrol, which we will be following now from this point, except when they give us another little tutorial mission. So we will be getting another one of those in a couple of issues when we get the new Eldari Guardians. But it looks like in issues where they're not introducing a new unit, or possibly a new rule, we will just be playing a full-size combat patrol game, which to start with obviously just Tyranids and Space Marines, but we'll probably have quite a lot of options to pick from later on. They didn't, obviously in this issue, they didn't give us any guidelines at all, so we just did what seemed to make sense. And of course we should also mention that yes, you do technically get 10 victory points for having a battle-ready painted army. I think most people tend to ignore that, except in perhaps specific clubs where they have an agreement amongst everybody where everybody just plays with painted miniatures. Most people don't worry about that too much. It means that you can, for example, buy a new combat patrol, build it straight and get playing with it straight away. And
Yeah, I think it would only really be in a tournament where that would actually apply. And that's usually just to incentivise people to have painted armies because it looks nicer.
And it's definitely something that is worth doing, I think, to actually paint your army, because it does look better and hopefully you get a sense of achievement out of doing it. But it also does possibly penalise people who really don't like painting, because there are some people who don't like painting. You don't have to like painting. I don't know, it's just one of those rules that they had in place for a little while and people have different opinions on it. So let us know what you think down below if you want. But other than that, I think that'll do for this video, so let us know what you thought in the comments below. If you've been playing full-size combat patrol games, or if this was your first game, let us know how those went, how you're finding the Tyranids and the Space Marines combat patrols. Leave a like and subscribe if you did enjoy the video. We've been the Tabletop Donkeys, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye for now.